This week on the PowerPLAY Show, we're almost a week away from midterm elections. Locally, our next governor and attorney general are at stake. Nationally, races in Georgia and Florida are making news. We'll break down all the races with my guest, George Chip Greenidge, coming up next on the PowerPLAY Show.
From the studios at Hull Bay Productions, this is Season 3 of the PowerPLAY Show. Now, here's Tonya McGrath.
Welcome to the PowerPLAY Show. I'm your host, Tonya McGrath. On November 8th, most voters will be going to the polls in states across the country for what is gearing up to be an exciting midterm election year. Senate races in Georgia and Florida are making headlines, and locally, Massachusetts is set to swear in a new governor and attorney general. My guest today is helping me break down all of this. George Chip Greenidge is a visiting fellow at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at the Harvard Kennedy School. He is a PhD candidate in sociology at Georgia State University, where he's currently researching on the economic development of urban cities and the impact of displacement and gentrification on its residents. Chip is also the founder and director of The Greatest Minds, a nonprofit organization that works with college students and young professionals to become the next generation of civic leaders through mentoring, volunteering, and participation. Chip, welcome back to the PowerPLAY Show.
Okay, you did your research on me. That's not bad. All right. Somebody's watching what I'm doing. I kind of feel good about that.
Listen, I got to start. First of all, how is Harvard?
Harvard University. No, it's so much being home. I mean, I feel really comfortable here. And it's so interesting is that I had a year appointment, but now I'm my second year. So, so I'm really glad to be here. Get to use the libraries. Just left a session with professors and fellows a few minutes ago, talking about all the issues that you were just talking about, we're going to be talking about today. So I got some of their insight as well. There was a recent New York Times poll that talked about, it just came out last week, 71% say that American democracy is currently under a threat. By 50 to 43% of the voters, political systems are too divided to even solve problems. And the last thing, Americans split on the election concern. Some eligible voters won't have a fair chance to vote. That's 48%. And some feel that they're going to vote illegally, which is 46%. So democracy right now in our own country is something that is very fragile right now. Yeah. And we're all feeling it. We're seeing it day by day. And democracy, as you know, it's also, issues around the environment are also very equally as important. But inflation and pocketbook is number one. I mean, I was just with my mom, and, I don't never go shopping with her. But when I do, she went there and said, "Oh, my God, do you know how much this costs? This is ridiculous to me. Oh, my God."
It's unreal. It's unreal.
And so I believe people are going to be voting with their pocketbook this time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I was doing a lot of my research today, and, abortion is also one of those hot topics that is on the table for everyone. But the economy is the number one issue. Gas prices, because people they're thinking about the cars that they drive, but how about the houses that are heated by gasoline? I mean, our bill has just gone skyrocketing. My husband's going around monitoring all the thermostats. Go put a sweater on. We're not doing that today. So we have
also credit card rates. Credit card rates have gone up.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just like, whoa, what do you mean 18%? What's going on here? You know what I mean? So it's everyone right now is in their pocketbook and filling their pocketbooks right now, and it's very in wallets and whatever you carry. Some people put it all over their bodies. It's the same way, but everyone's feeling it. And so I really think that this election that we're going to be having in the next few days, next week to go for it, it's about people and feeling where their hands are and if their voices are actually being heard.
Well, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it. And I want to start off with the Massachusetts gubernatorial race. Democratic Maura Healey is turning out to be the heavy favorite against Republican Jeff Deal, who has been endorsed by former President Donald Trump. Healey is still holding a sizable lead. What's at stake here?
No, Healey, it's so interesting is that Maura Healey has done her research and she's made some very strategic alliances this time around to make sure. And it's very interesting that a lot of people from her space don't even get into the governor's ship and so forth. But she did some very strategic alliances with Ayanna Pressley and so forth. So she has done her calculations. She has done her work. And the Republican challenger, he will have his, there are people that do support him as well, but she does right now have a very sizable lead of support here in the area, so forth.
As I mentioned before, abortion has been a very hot topic in all the races across the country. Healey accused Deal of wanting to jail doctors who provide abortion care, but Deal has maintained that he will maintain the abortion access in Massachusetts. Do you think this topic, being so polarizing right now, will lead to more women getting to the polls on November 8th?
Yes, definitely. I know that one thing in Georgia, remind you, I have lots of students that I still mentor in Georgia and have lots of connections here and also in Boston. But in Georgia, it's a polarizing issue. Everyone's going to the polls, and that's really the one or two issue that they're really talking about. But also here in Massachusetts, I really feel that we know about the right to choose. And we're very proponent of that. And I think that's going to prevail in the polls and who we're going to go for and so forth. But remember, they're cut from a different cloth down there. I want to let people know is that it's interesting. I had a friend of mine who was in graduate school with me, and we were talking about who she voted for back in the day, a Black woman, same economic class and all that. And she said that she voted for Bush. And I was like, what? I'm from Oz. I'm from Cambridge. You know what I mean? What do you mean you voted for Bush? And then I didn't want to talk to her anymore, but it was really interesting. As you go sit back and talk with her a little later, is that she said, well, my church told me that would be the best person to vote for. And so you got to think about No Child Left Behind in 2000. You got to think about all those faith-based initiatives and government, putting all those other things. And so there are lots more mixture that we don't hear where we're here in somewhat, we can get in the bubble in Oz up here in the Massachusetts area. But there's, as we saw with the last election, when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, we realized that the president before that is that, everybody, we're sitting here slapping hands in the blue states, but we all need to be getting on buses and getting old because there was a lot of red. Yes.
And I think the presidential election has made it even more divided. If Healey wins, she will become the first woman and first openly gay candidate to be elected governor in Massachusetts, the same state where, of course, first made same-sex marriage legal in this country. Is this significant? And, there's a lot of firsts that could happen after November 8th, and we'll get to a couple more of them. But is this significant for Massachusetts?
It's very significant because I think the city of Cambridge was the first city to pass out
marriage license. Yeah.
1201. I think
yes, it was. I was there.
I'm very proud of my city and so forth to do that. But it's like, people are now looking at the candidate and what they bring to the table. It's not, what happens people are not really peeking in the bedroom anymore. As we're also finding out, which is on a different stance of what's going on in Georgia with Warnock and Herschel Walker, is that we're seeing whatever he did in his bedroom with how many women and whatever times of the years and so forth and how many abortions and so forth, it's not really affecting his numbers.
Yeah. And we're going to
so
get specifically into that race in a couple minutes. But I think that you're making a really good point. Now, on the counter side to that, deal was, as I mentioned, endorsed by former President Donald Trump. And I'm wondering if this will hurt him in the polls, because Massachusetts is a blue state. We know that. We reign blue. We have, consistently voted Democrat on the national races. So is this hurting Deal, you think?
Well, it's interesting because I think right now there's a lot of stuff on lots of people's minds right now. And as you see right here from the poll information that I just gave you is that, voting is not number one on people too busy putting food on the table, trying to put resources and put networks back, trying to understand their families after post-COVID, if we're ever at post-COVID. But it's very interesting. We're going to get a wake-up call on in the second week of November of who actually is showing up with the polls, because people can actually take a sleeper on this and say, Maura Healey got it in the bag. Why do I have to even show up? You know what I mean? Numbers are, staggering, but it's happened. I think the same thing happened with our last female candidate, Martha Coakley.
Yes.
Went with U.S. With the Senate and so forth. It's very interesting is that when people just lean back, I think she even went on vacation for 2 weeks after and so forth. But it's very interesting is the not being able to let up, to know that there's a race being met. And so we need to figure out what's the street game and the name game and all these other things that are going on, because you cannot take this lightly. You know what I mean? Trump has supporters and he has networks that are sleeper networks that will be able to get up and get out the vote when we will never even know what happened.
I want to turn now to the Attorney General's race here in Massachusetts. Andrea Campbell, the first Black woman to be president of the Boston City Council. She lost a bid for mayor of Boston a couple years ago and is now seemed to be thriving in her campaign for the AG's office. What does she need to do these last 10 days or so before the 8th?
Well, it's very interesting what just happened here is that Michelle Wu, Kim Janey, and also Elizabeth Warren went with another candidate. And it's really interesting to see how we've really been always pushing minority candidates and making sure that they're really quality minority candidates to run. Here are these, lots of them have worked with her directly on the field, inside the city hall and so forth. So it's a very interesting toss-up of why Andrea did not get the support of Kim Janey, nor get the support of Michelle Wu going into this next process of, power and sisters in service and all these other things. However, it just showed you that we just found that it's very interesting. The Democratic Party is that there's kind of 2 or 3 parties that are within the Democratic Party that are actually now forming. Is that, there's the Ayanna Pressley kind of camp and, Lydia Edwards and all these on one side. And then there's Michelle Wu and also Elizabeth Warren on one side. So there's some new kind of camps that are actually being, it's not this kind of uniform kind of camp that it is that there are little breakoffs that are happening right now, and which will cause some confusion, but also, some really strength about, really what our Democratic Party really needs. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Maura Healey has come out in support of Andrea Campbell, who is promoting equality and justice in her campaign. And if she wins, another historical fact here, will become the first Black woman to hold any statewide office in Massachusetts. What do you think that she's learned from her mayoral campaign that is helping her better in this race?
Oh, one thing is that it's very interesting that Andrea wasn't polling too well till, I think it was coming like August and September. So it's a very interesting piece what happened here. I didn't understand if there was ever a conversation between Andrew and Kim about this and the numbers of the city and who can actually pull this off. She has to keep her feet to the ground. She's been visiting. She has great networks, and she has a multicultural coalition that is behind her. I got to give that to her. She's really been able to build that. And I actually went to one of her closing events when she did not get onto the bout, to the final piece. She had over 120 people on there really thanking her for her service and putting her voice out there. And, Andrea has been through everything as a person of color, born and raised in Boston, foster care, lots of different things with family members and so forth. And for her to be
brother died in jail.
Yes, a breathing, standing person that loves community and government and systems, we should hold on to that and grab it. So I'm very proud of her and her work of being a lawyer, going to UCLA, going to Princeton. I think that's where she went. But these schools of, here's everything told her to sit down, but she didn't sit down. She stood right back up.
That's right. Let's now turn our attention to Georgia, which is a state that you have also called home for a lot of your life, and the U.S. Senate race between Democratic incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock.
My Morehouse classmate. We were in class together. Very proud of him.
And
also
Republican
Stacey Abrams. I want people to realize Stacey Abrams was also a classmate of mine.
See, you're so connected. You're so connected. And Republican challenger Herschel Walker. These two men couldn't be more polar opposites. What do you see happening here in this race?
When Herschel Walker jumped into the race, I said, the Republican people know how to pick them. I mean, you got a Heisman Trophy winner. Yep. I think everybody that played football like myself or in high school wanted to be Herschel Walker as a young person. He was the best stamina field, do lots of other things and all that. And then we started peeling away who he is as 2020 and 2021 and 2022 Herschel Walker as of today, which is very different from that. But you know what? He gets a pass, and he's getting a lot of passes in Georgia because what's happening, I believe, down there is that they don't care who's in there. All right. The Republicans want to win. They want to control the Senate. They don't care. They don't care who it is. They really don't. And it's very interesting is that this is what's going on, is that it can be a breathing, lifeless body, a sheep. They want somebody in there to vote how they want to vote. And it's interesting, things like healthcare, mass, healthcare. And in Georgia, if you go to a hospital and you don't have any healthcare, you won't be seen like that movie John Q.
Wow.
With Denzel Washington. Here in the state of Massachusetts, you will be seen, and somewhere in the state, someone's going to take care and pay that bill if you don't have the resources. Another thing is that there's a housing courts in Georgia. 30 days you don't pay your rent. You know what I mean? Your shit's in the street. All right.
Wow.
Here you have 4 to 5 processes, all these other things. So we sometimes get in this bubble up here of what things are and what it's really not reality in other places is that, in Georgia, students carry around guns on campus, seen in front of you. You know what I mean? I freaked out in the class when a student had a gun in the class, but this is acceptable behavior.
Yeah. And
so we got to realize that some people live very differently from us. And guess what? Herschel Walker represents that difference. All right. And there are lots of people that think like that down there. And you wonder why these polls aren't like 79% to 21%. It's 49-49.
Yeah. It's a dead heat. And so even though a second woman has now come out accusing Walker of pressuring her to have an abortion, even mentioning, that Walker drove her to the clinic, do you see this hurting him in any kind of way. I mean,
he's a weeble wobble. You can knock him down, but he's coming right back up. It's from the Trump book. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's a weeble wobble. It's not hurting them. They're like, oh, he's a football player. That's what they do. And he's he's been able to do some very careful things, especially during one of the debates, is that he really pushed that Warnock was 95 or 96. It was pretty much Biden. He was a Biden person.
Yep.
And then he also said, Georgians are very loyal to each other. They said, listen, my friends, Trump is a friend. I'm going to stay with my friend. So these little kind of bits, and he said, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be here at that slick preacher language and give you all. The Georgians eat all that up. All right. They do. They like regular people. They love guns. All right. They want the protections. They want the basic First Amendment protection. They want that. And that's what they grew up on. And that's what they believe. And you got to realize is that people do live like this.
Has Senator Warnock, I should say, has he been effective so far? And does he have a good chance of being reelected?
No, he has been. I mean, he's been able to really toe down on the Democratic line. Is that he's been very effective in that area. Is that, he's been playing the party line, which has been good for him because he's been able to get lots of different resources and networks. And, the governor, Kemp, won't agree to this, who was running against we didn't talk about Stacey Abrams and Governor Kemp
That's
yet.
next.
All right. But I mean, there are a lot of resources that came from Warnock and his support of that went to Georgians that actually Kemp is taking credit for.
So you just teased it a little bit, but there's another huge race in Georgia that everyone is paying attention to, and that's between Republican incumbent Brian Kemp and Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams. This is her second time running for governor. The race is as tight as it can be. I think it's 50-49 right now. Does she have a shot? I mean, I think in her first election, we all started hearing Stacey's name, right? And yes. the women were just like, yes. They surrounded her, embraced her and everything. How do you see this one going?
With Stacey, you know what? We've been under Kemp for several years. 4 or 5 years, and Georgia didn't blow up yet. And that's one thing. During the pandemic, he vowed to keep Georgia open, and he did. The economy is a service economy down there. It's very interesting from the economy that we have up here. It's like, industries such as conferences and UPS and all, Amazon, all those are service industries, people
Delta.
that kept people working,
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing. And if you shut that down, Georgia doesn't make any money. And so he's been able to keep the place open, which I know because a lot of Bostonians and greater Bostonians flew down to Atlanta during that time to have some kind of semblance of normal life, because they went out to even though we were closed up here for a whole year, down there they went business as usual after 9 months. And so I think that's what's going on here, is that the state hasn't blown up at all, very much like the Trump people, is that, we're all still here. We weren't in nuclear war or anything like that. And so I think people are saying it's not super broke, so why not fix it? But one thing that she did is that she did go to Supreme Court to try to challenge the way that the election, the first election was actually given, where she talked about very strong pieces about, people not allowed to vote, all these different things, showing voter ID, all that, no water and all that other stuff. But the Supreme Court, who was a Biden person nominee, said, yeah, it's bad, but it's not bad. It's not that bad. It doesn't count as some kind of super breach. So they kicked it out of court. And so I think Stacey Abrams is walking around with a big D for democracy, whereas the rest of the country is at a small D for democracy, and actually what it means. Even though she's right on, but it's not totally broken and and just, where it is. Well, as you noticed, with the insurrection that happened, it is broke, and we would never ever believe that we can actually see a civil war actually happen. We believe that would never happen here, especially in these times and ages. But we just found out it's very possible.
Right. So she's got a little bit over a week left. What does Stacey need to do to pull this off? If she were to upset Kemp, she would be the first Black governor first Black female governor, I should say, in American history. So what does she need to do? What does her message need to be right now to Georgians for the next week and a half?
Well, she's been able to mobilize lots of different voters to get on the rolls. Lots of, I got to say, lots of Black women organizers from the churches and all folk really heeded the call, and we're out there getting people out to vote. So she needs to rely back on that base, is that those are the people that really got her where she needed to go. She needs to go back to them and say, our work is not done. All hands on deck, everybody. Get all the college students, everybody on deck to make this happen. She has that time, and she has the different apparatuses, several nonprofits that are out there to say your vote counts. Please go and vote on that day and make your decision. She's done all the work.
Finally, in Florida, we have another, and this race is very interesting to me. Republican incumbent Senator Marco Rubio is going toe-to-toe with Congressman Val Demings, who I'm just going to be a little partisan right now. I love this woman. Both have spent more than $10 million each collect on their respective campaigns. And again, another hot issue between the two is the economy and abortion. I don't know if you saw the debate that they had a couple of weeks ago. That was one for the ages. But what does Val need to do to upset Rubio at this point?
Well, she's a great orator. She's a great communicator, and I hate to say now these days is that's not really where, the energy is. She has a very large Republican base down there, and they're gonna go Republican, I believe. And so we really have to really take that into consideration as we look at this kind of analysis, is that people are going to be voting very on party lines there. She's a strong candidate. She has all the credentials and so forth, but it's really about the get out the vote campaign and who's going to show up. There are a lot of people in Florida that are totally disenfranchised, Black communities and so forth, that believe that their government doesn't care about them at all. You know what I mean? So look at the several hurricanes that have happened down there and so forth. It took a while for things to come. It went to some people. And so people believe that, and they know it's happening. And when it's time to come out to make that day, they're like, you know what? I have other things to do.
Yeah, so, my house is gone. I need to rebuild, right?
Thank you. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Red Cross wasn't here for 3 days. I was out sitting outside, trying to collect my photo albums and found that dog Fido. You know what I mean? So these are real important issues that are right up front. But I'm giving it to her. What you're supposed to do and what she's doing is that our job is to run for every kind of office that we can. You know what I mean? And guess what? If you don't win, you're building a base, okay, for the next, because her friends, her ex-boyfriends, her neighbors, her cousins, all going to come out and vote for her. You know what I mean? Right. But that's what we're doing. We're building a base to say that this voter blocks do work and that we can make it happen.
Yesterday, the Miami Herald came out and endorsed Val. Do these endorsements even matter anymore? I mean, I know like 15, 20 years ago, we couldn't wait until we found out who the Boston Globe was endorsing or who the Herald was endorsing. But nowadays, it seems like I don't know how much they matter.
I think with Trump, and I hate to put Trump in the same voice and version with AOC, is that people want people they can relate to. And it's very interesting that AOC was a waitress before she ran for office and so forth. And she's doing a fantastic job. So people want to see themselves in office. And I think that's something that's more coming into more play, is that they want to see someone that reminds them of them and so forth. So these kind of untouchable people like Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are things now of the past, of that people want to see people with some grit. They want to see people with some energy and also a very strong Twitter following to be able to tackle some issues. And they want to be able to contact them, hit them on Twitter, hit her on all this. So it's interesting when Trump, President Trump, I'll say, decided not to use the media as an avenue. He said, I'm just going to, you know what, I'm not going to have these weekly briefings. I'll just use my Twitter account. It just changed the whole game. And I would say, well, how dare he not do this? But he was like, why not? You know what I mean? Right. You're not going to get my story right. Why don't I get it right in 38 characters? I'll tell you what it is, and you go decipher it and let it all that. So it's also very interesting to that as well.
So November 8th is the day for your vote to count. Chip, thank you for a great conversation. And I think I'm going to have you back in a couple weeks to report on what happened. But before I let you go, I wanted to give you a moment to shout out a trailblazer right here from the Bay State, and that is one of your mentors, G. McGuire.
Definitely. Thank you. I just want to give a shout out for 91-year-old G. McGuire. She's been a person that I've always gone to since I was 18, 19 years old. And a lot of my programs, such as the Young Black Boston Network, the Black College Alliance, and Greatest Minds, her and Mel King were the first people I went to be at these conferences where we were having at Roxbury Community Colleges back in the 90s. At the Roxbury Boys and Girls Club, they've always came. She was jumped at Franklin Park walking her dogs a couple weeks ago. Jean McGuire is in better shape than I am. She swims every day at the Roxbury Y and is in great shape. And she was able to fight off her attacker, and she's healing now. But I just want to put good energy and presence around supporting all our people, but the violence has to stop in our neighborhoods. And we need to find really creative ways, working with government and the police and also the community. We're going to have to step up and really take some action. So big hugs and shout out, and thank you. Thank you, Tanya, for making sure that we bring her in this conference. She was one of the first elected school committee members as we talk about elections. Yes. And she's really interesting. She said, Chip, we didn't have Facebook and all that other stuff. Is that they saw my last name was McGuire. They voted for me in South Boston. She said, that's how I got in. And you know what I mean? She just put the sign, no picture. Amazing, huh? I love it. Anyway, right? If your last name's Kennedy, use it, right?
That's right. All right, Chip. Another person y'all need to look out for on a ballot near you coming soon. I've been calling this man Governor Greenidge for a while, but thank you for being my guest today. We'll have you back on a couple weeks and see how this all turned out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Love. All right.
Remember, you can listen to past episodes of the PowerPLAY Show wherever you subscribe to podcasts, including iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Simply search the Hull Bay Productions Media channel and be sure to subscribe so you always know when we're live. And we air each Saturday at 5 p.m. on BroncoiRadio.com. So tune into a new episode of the PowerPLAY Show, the last Thursday of the month, wherever you subscribe to podcasts, or on our YouTube channel, or simply visit thepowerplayshow.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Tonya McGrath. Thank you for tuning in, and please vote.